Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Backlog Bunker. This week I played a bunch of different things, so I was going through my friend's Steam library, and so I'll try to keep things short per game, but I have a lot of thoughts on some of them. The first being Stars in Time, which was a game that was recommended to me by a lot of people I know in real life, and having played it, it's got a good premise, but the actual gameplay experience was not so good. I like the idea of death not resulting in a literal death, but instead adding to the number of times you go through a time loop. However, by the time I had gotten to the second or third loop, I had no intention of continuing the game, and even as far as I ended up getting, I was surprised I got that far without having just quit outright. For one, this is an RPG, and despite being an RPG, the text moves very, very slowly and the conversations are not brisk. They talk about bullshit during this game. Especially the child, who isn't even a party member but is still tagging along and never has anything important to say. Not even anything interesting or funny to say, and trust me, we'll get back to that. And they, much like the actual party members, just keep talking, and it's so slow. Even once you start looping and you can start skipping through dialogue, there's still just a little bit of delay that slows everything down. Then the second major problem with the game playing experience is that the game is very hard to look at. And no, I don't mean that it's ugly, I mean it's literally hard to look at because the screen is very small. Your only options for resolution are to either play the game in full screen and make the entire thing blurry, or to play it in a window and constantly be squinting at the 500 by 500 pixel screen in front of your desktop. And finally, this is more on tone than presentation, but I don't fuck with this game's vibes at all. It's clearly made for the audience that would unironically use the word problematic, and I don't mean that disparagingly, I think it's just literally true. The characters have about as much bite as a newborn baby, and I think if any of them said anything that was ever offensive at any point in time, they would explode on the spot. And like I said, I don't mean that disparagingly, no hate to you if you enjoy this kind of stuff, but for me, I enjoy at least a little bit of peanut butter on my white bread, so I can't really enjoy eating this. Next, I played A Hat in Time, and tonally, I really adore the game. It's got the whimsical adventure style that I associate with a lot of 3D platformers, and it brings forth a lot of the cartoony surrealism that I'd see in something I'd watch on TV as a kid. At the risk of raising alarm bells, I genuinely, in literal terms, I think this game is very funny and cute. Unfortunately, I didn't really like it all that much, and the problem comes from the types of 3D platformers it's trying to emulate, namely 3D Mario. The problem here is that emulating Galaxy is hard because those games have such good level design. Emulating 64 is hard because it's clearly a much shorter experience than Hat in Time was going for, and emulating Sunshine is hard because it's a bad game. Unfortunately, A Hat in Time takes the most cues from Sunshine, especially when it comes to level design that I find lacking. And then, something it does about as bad if not worse than all of those games are the load times. Getting in and out of a 64 level is lightning fast, and while A Hat in Time shares the level enter and exit times of Sunshine and Galaxy, all this really tells me is that A Hat in Time didn't learn from those games' mistakes because it's also bad there, and they should not have sought to copy it in any capacity. Moving on to Ultrakill, it's obviously very reminiscent of Doom Eternal, a game that I enjoy, contrary to popular belief, but with a few key differences. Ultrakill combines a more frenetic pace with more stylized visuals and blood spatter to the point where it gets hard to see sometimes. I've said my piece about Doom Eternal's design before, but never have I ever actually had a problem seeing anything, which is what makes running around in that game much more manageable. Ultrakill wants you to do the same thing with more difficult visuals and a parry, so you can't always run away. I did have fun with what I played though, and I'll definitely try it more to see if I get used to it. I've certainly got time, since I'd rather die than support the practice of early access games, so until the game actually comes out, I'm in no rush. And then finally, there's Resident Evil 4, which you might have noticed is the only thing I actually have footage for, because I didn't expect I was actually going to talk about the other things. I didn't have that many thoughts about them when I first played them. It wasn't until later that I had more thoughts about them. Also, I played too much Fire Emblem, a game I don't have many thoughts on, so I ended up not having much to talk about this week until I went back to those games. So yeah, Resident Evil 4 is the only footage I have. Obviously, I played more of it, I still like it, and something I really like so far is that all the guns have a purpose. The pistol I like to use for quick and consistent damage while also going for body parts. The shotgun I use for instant burst damage that I can use to go for instant kills, or set myself up for instant kills when they're down. The SMG I use for headshot fishing and crowd control, and the rifle is just for instant kills on anyone I have range on. Which is really exciting when they start running at you, because then the pressure is really on to get a headshot, and it makes actually getting that headshot feel better. And maybe it's just because I'm so used to Metal Gear Solid 3 at this point, but I really don't mind having to access the menu constantly when switching weapons, because it keeps me aware of how much ammo I have when fighting a mob. The game is also really good about keeping you on edge with resources, since ammo and health are not always abundant. I've gone through quite a few sections where I only had a handful of bullets left and I was sweating worrying about when I would get some more. Early on, I was actually kind of afraid that I was going to end up hoarding all of my grenades throughout the whole game, but during that section where I had basically no ammo, I think I had 6 shotgun shells left, it felt really rewarding to use a grenade instead of using the shotgun shells, because it just felt better to make it out of a situation without using all of my resources. So, I absolutely plan on continuing to play Resident Evil 4, and hopefully, the game only ever goes up from here. And then there's the weekly topic, which if you've been online you might know where this is going, but the question being, do you actually have to play games to be a fan of those games? Yes. As much as I'd like the topic to end there, Twitter.com clearly disagrees with me. To be the most charitable that I can be, as someone who only ever had a Wii and a DS growing up, and even then I didn't get a lot of the most popular games, I understand when people would want to watch playthroughs. That was how I experienced Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. I watched Sugar Conway play it because I couldn't get the game for myself, I didn't have disposable income. Fucking sue me, I was 10. To be even more charitable, I won't even pocket watch and say that grown adults should be able to pay for the game, because things are hard right now. I can understand not paying for a video game. That's fine. However, unlike these people on Twitter.com, I eventually got the games I wanted to play, even if it meant that my first time owning Minecraft was on the Xbox 360 that I got for my birthday in 2016. The conversation on Twitter.com seems to revolve around a group of people that appear to be averse to the idea of even playing a game they're interested in. It's bizarre. They're so extreme in their misinterpretation of games as a medium that I've had to take a harder stance on narrative in games and say that even watching a playthrough of a story offers a meaningfully different experience. My perspective used to be that I didn't think it really mattered all that much and that I could agree with the argument on either side, but the more examples I think of, the more I realize it just can't be true. I think that the best example I came up with was from Metal Gear Solid 2. Part of the reason the codec sucks so much in that game is because it interrupts gameplay constantly and is very long-winded, which you obviously won't feel as bad if you aren't playing the game. Never forget, Jack and Rose have their conversations after you try to save the game, which is inherently a thing that you as a player decide to do. The number of sessions you play Metal Gear Solid 2 in, or alternatively, just the amount of safety you want to give yourself in playing the game, will determine how you interpret the story, because you literally won't get all of it. Which, to actually praise Metal Gear Solid 2 here, is a very important part of the story, because whether or not you believe Rose is an AI at the end of the game is dependent on what you think about Rose. If you saved pretty frequently, you might be thinking about all the times that this annoying girl interrupted you playing the game to talk about whatever bullshit, but if you never saved, you'll get to the end of the game not knowing a damn thing about her and Jack's relationship. Obviously, this has ruined my Metal Gear Solid 4, but like many things that are ruined by Metal Gear Solid 4, let's just pretend to ignore that for now. Another very iconic part of the codec in Metal Gear Solid 2 is the fission mailed screen, which again will mean something different to you depending on how you played the game. It might mean something different to you based on what kind of video game player you are. How you feel about the fission mailed screen will change depending on how you as a person react to a game over, and whether or not you even know what a game over looks like in Metal Gear Solid 2. If you, for example, never even played the game, it might not mean anything to you besides just being a little cool meta reference. Metal Gear Solid 2, for all of its faults, and for all the things I don't like about that game, is very clearly a video game, and makes use of that in a lot of important ways. Ways that will be completely lost on someone who didn't fucking play it. The TLDR for all of that is basically that what happens isn't the only important part, it's also how that information is conveyed to you. Me telling you about the fission mailed screen is different from actually experiencing the fission mailed screen. And despite what a lot of people will say, this doesn't apply to other mediums. There's a difference between reading a script for a movie and actually watching a movie. Even if every single detail, down to every little eye turn, is written down in the script, that's different from seeing it in the movie. Sure, you could watch the movie and have the exact same thoughts about the way the script was written, but the way the movie made you feel will be different, even if you don't know it. As someone who flips back and forth between books, comics, manga, TV shows, movies, and video games constantly, you'd be surprised at how much your brain leaves to interpretation that is completely different when you actually see it in a different thing. So basically, play the fucking game. That's it. Get out of here.